And now, a thought from Geico Motorcycle.
It took 15 minutes to take a spirit animal quiz online.
Please be the cheetah. Please be the cheetah.
And learn your animal isn't the cheetah, but the far less appealing blobfish.
Oh, come on.
To add insult to injury, you could have used those 15 blobfish minutes to switch your motorcycle insurance to Geico.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on motorcycle insurance.
There is an abundant offering of mystery and wonder within our universe. But what do you get when you infuse humor and joy into each and every conversation to helping others gain insight within that mystery and wonder within our everyday lives? Well, you get the Mystery and Wonder podcast, where you will gain exactly that, a greater experience to the abundance within. And so here is your host for today's podcast, Trixie Phelps, only on Real Revolution Radio X.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for being here. I am Trixie Phelps, founder and owner of my healing business, Soul Balancing, and now with my new podcast show, Mystery and Wonder, exploring our universe and its extraordinary and amazing life, past, present, and future. Thank you for joining me here. I am really excited to share with you my experiences as well as those of my guests. And let me just give you a bit about me. I'm a fifth-generation sensitive, intuitive, empath, and healer. I have been studying under many modalities, in a variety of which I combine in my current offerings through my business, Soul Balancing, at soulbalancing.world, if you'd like to check that out. I do work shamanically based with healings and a quantum level, as well as doing transformational coaching. I would love to connect with you if that's something that speaks to you. I also want to introduce to you today my guest. I have a wonderful guest here today I've known for quite a few years, so I'm very excited to have her with us. This is Christina Schwind. Christina is a new paradigm visionary and mystic. She has a unique and thorough approach to empowering new paradigm wayshowers, starseeds, and visionaries by enhancing their psychic intuitive perceptions and abilities as a multidimensional being. For 20 years, she experimented with activating deep healing alternate states of awareness. She began her work with Indigenous record keeper Barbara Hand-Clow, mastering a multidimensional activation process, which led her down a rabbit hole of experiences with extraterrestrial and interdimensional beings. Today, she applies what she has learned from her decades of practice and training to help an awakening world cultivate healthy, autonomous exospecies relationships, doing her part in helping humanity step back into their role as a galactic citizen. She carries transmissions from ancient lineages of this planet and beyond, and gifts of a blueprint of personal multidimensional liberation and much more. The elders and grand masters of these lineages lovingly gifted the strands of their medicine and wisdom teachings to all of humanity to assist us in making a quantum leap forward as luminous beings of a new paradigm. Christina Schwind is the founder of the Light Body Therapeutics Academy for Multidimensionals and a unique Facebook community of psychic intuitives and exospecies experiencers called Rise of the Multidimensional Human. You can look at her website, www.lightbodyinc.com, lightbody, and then inc.com. Check her out, check her page out while we have our conversation and enjoy what offerings Christina brings. Hello, Christina. Thanks for being here.
Hey, Trixie. So good to be here. Thanks for having me.
You bet, you bet. Very, very excited to see what kind of information comes through today. Very excited. As I work with many extraterrestrials myself in a different way, same but different. I feel that you've got a lot of deeper and more broad connection, and I'm, again, very excited to see what information, stories, or support or knowledge that these beings are bringing through you to us. It's just exciting.
Yes, well, that just shows how far we've come as a species. I think that, people who are that maybe start off on a spiritual path or start off as a healer and they really get deep into their work, the next thing you know, oh boy, there's these ETs reaching out, trying to contact us.
Yes.
Yes, it's really very fun. And I think when people don't talk about it, you secretly think you're crazy for a little while until you hear someone else talk about it. Then you're like, oh my God, someone else who has the similar experience. Yay!
It is so true. It's very true.
Yeah. So, so I just got back from a trip from the Balkans. We were brought there to work with some of the energy systems of that area, and bring forward information about some beings that are maybe less well known to healers and stuff, healers and meditators and people of, I guess I would say, of that ilk maybe. And I'd be happy to talk about them. We could just start off the bat with that, or we can maybe warm up a little bit and speak about some of the ETs that are more well known. I'll leave that up to you.
Yeah, well, I'm really wanting to just jump right in there, but I think for our listeners it probably makes more sense to do with the more well-known ones and then lead up to the ones you've been currently connecting with. So let's go that way.
Cool. Well, I suppose the most well-known among humanity are the Pleiadians. They have been reaching out. They've been reaching out and communicating with humans for a long, long, long time. I'm curious about how far along on your path were you when you started to hear the voice of a Pleiadian, Trixie?
That's a good question. I would honestly say how far in. Oh gosh, I guess in totality it was probably closer to the decade, seven years in or so. I want to feel like 7's a big number popping up when I go to look at that. So yeah, quite a few years in. But again, I want to point out that 7th year approximately was also after I'd focused on doing this full time. Prior to that, I was also, working another job and only part-time connecting. If that makes sense. So when I gave up the job and put my full focus on it, then the connections were a lot easier to make, and it was probably within a year after I was really working, to connect in that way.
So when you really dived in with that great big yes.
Correct, yes, that's when it really came in. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The Pleiadians for me were pretty. It was a similar kind of thing. I worked a corporate job, and I did like yoga and meditation on the side, and I taught yoga and meditation, and then as I got deeper into that kind of work, I eventually came across some beings that, I don't know if they came across me or I came across them really, but I began developing that relationship when I eventually was in a position where I was in a full-time available for the work. And that was back when I was pregnant with my oldest daughter, who's now 20. So it's been a while. And there's been some amazing record keepers that have brought the work of the Pleiadians forward as well, both indigenous and other types of sources. And in general, what I can say about the developing a relationship with the Pleiadians, it's very loving, it's very sweet and uplifting and childlike. In a sense, is a good description of how their energy is when they interact with us. When I began, I was like really impressed. I was really kind of impressed with myself, like, oh my gosh, I have these beings talking to me. And they're doing these amazing healings on my body, and I think I took it very much into, because it wasn't common, or I didn't know about it at the time, but a lot of people were doing it. I was just kind of very content with just knowing them and not really exploring any further. But
that's true for a lot of people, actually. Yes.
Yeah. But as time went by, they started bringing other beings with them when I would sit and meditate, and so they were like the doorway for me to open up to other beings. And the next level of beings that they brought forward into my awareness were the Sirians, and it's also a popular, I don't want to say popular, but a common connection. And they explained to me that the Sirians work very closely with them in helping humanity wake up. And at the time, I was really feeling the pressure about the 2012 thing and ascension and all that. And I was like, really like, oh my God, I need to work as hard as I can, because if I miss this ascension, that's it, I kind of was like in that kind of space. And I'm sure many of your listeners can feel that, have a similar thing with that. And,
yes.
Yeah, right. And we just kind of, I was in that kind of state for quite many years, actually, working with ETs and different beings. I really was a big yes. I was like doing it even though, I was sticking my finger in that spiritual lightning socket over and over and over again, and letting my life fall apart and then rebuild and then life fall apart and rebuild. I was doing this. And then I realized it's like I'm not really being kind to myself doing that. It was really intense. And the Sirians and the Pleiadians, and there was a few other people that joined in by then that were just like, she's waking up to it. And they all kind of giggle. They would giggle at me when I would realize this realization. And really the ones that really helped me make that leap is when the Andromedans started to come in. And when they were coming in and I was building a relationship with them, I had that realization that it's not at all about if I'm going to make the ascension or not. It was really about peeling away what I needed to peel away so I can truly live in my purpose.
Yeah, wow, what a beautiful awareness to have. That's awesome. You can feel how deep that can hit, the truth of it.
Yeah, and boy, did I relax. I was like, oh, my focus has been completely wrong. It's been framed up as, I'm a lowly human that's no good, and I need to change everything about myself in order to be able to ascend. It's kind of like in that program, and that really woke me up to something else. And I think that this is, in the beginning, this is why a lot of the exo-species work with us, is they hold these fields, so when we're ready, we can just bloom into it, wake up to it in a very graceful, easy way. There's no pressure. There's no, you have to do this. And that is something that takes a while, I think, for a light worker to let go of needing to be told what to do. You know what I mean? Like, they look to like looking to your guides and, I have to do it because my guide said so. Not really. In my experience, not really. You do it because you want to do it as part of your purpose. And then it's like really aligned, and there's this graceful, right? And
when it is aligned, to feel the passion, and then there's that desire to want to, it just sort of falls together really well.
Yeah. So this is what I help intuitives with. It's like there's all these fine-tunements. It's like it's not that the data that we're getting or the relationship that we have is inappropriate. It's just that we have some frame-ups in our belief systems and our mindsets that skew the real purpose of why we're doing what we're doing. And so that kind of piece right there is one of those little things that I, that really wakes people up to listening on being able to listen to things on another level and perceive with a lens. It's clearer. If you understand what I mean by the lens.
Right, yeah, there's that distortion of energy, however it may present to an individual, that distortion that prevents them from really seeing the clarity of, the message or the situation. Yeah, as programming and beliefs and all sorts of other influences. I do, that makes sense to me. Yeah.
So, and we have beliefs and programs running that we're not even aware of. Well, so we are, of course, but we're always blown away when we wake up to it.
Yeah, it's true. There's a shock to it. They're like, you almost feel like, was that really me? Was I really like that? And then when you do, you realize it, and then you're like, I don't want to be like that. And it makes it easier, bringing it into consciousness.
Yes, and then it brings me back to things that the Pleiadians would say to me about having a sense of humor, and it's completely okay to laugh at yourself. In fact, you're better off if you can laugh at yourself.
Oh, good. I love the laugh, so that's perfect. I love to hear that as well. And then what a wonderful thing. I like to know that you're giving this to your students, passing this on, this knowledge and this approach, or this other perception to help them, to move forward more easily as well. That's excellent.
Yes. Well, I have a passion for empowerment. I really, through the different teachers that I've had, and we've shared a teacher as well, my theme that I keep seeing revealed to me over and over again, it's like, where is my empowerment? If I'm really a manifesting being in a human body, the victim story, our feelings of disempowerment, not knowing what to do, those are distortions. So where is in this scenario where I feel completely disempowered, where is my empowerment? Where does it live in this scenario? And by framing things up like that to myself over and over and over again, I've been able to refine, and touch on these pieces. And I'm sure you've heard the saying that, there's an art in asking the right question, like when you're channeling and stuff.
Yeah.
And for me, it was, where does my empowerment live here? That was the right question for me. And when you're asking the right question, because then it's like the energy just takes off and takes you somewhere that you weren't before. So
yes, and an enjoyable kind of feeling, an unexpected but enjoyable feeling, and that's a great way to phrase the question. I know when I pose questions, I try and make them clear, or not too precise and not too restricted. That you're always learning new ways of how to ask for help or guidance or clarity, and I love that. What you're asking is awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so that art of the question is such a big piece for us when we're on this path, because there's a lot of things that are going on that we really don't have anybody in our immediate circles to ask advice about, and then and then there's also a lot of light workers that feel like if they really were a real light worker and what they do, they shouldn't have to ask. So there's also that kind of piece where we feel like it's a diminishment on our skill set if we have to ask another for help or advice. And yes, and
I want to connect us to your Facebook page as well, because I believe a lot of these kinds of conversations are happening there. Is that correct?
Yes.
Where there's support, they can pose their questions, and there's going to be so many other like-minded people that obviously as part of that group that can contribute to responding or supporting others.
Yes, absolutely. The group that you're referring to is the Rise of the Multidimensional Human group, and every Thursday at noon I do a lunchtime chat, and people mail in questions and scenarios and sharings and stuff, and then I pick out from what's been mailed to me 3 topics. And while I talk about those topics, there's also live Q&A in between. And what I really love about this group is that everybody is on the same page. We don't really need to deal with a lot of the mundane, beginner stuff. It's like we can just shoot right, go right into the juicy stuff, and not really have to cover the preliminaries. So.
Oh, what a good feeling that is.
Yeah. So it's kind of like having a conversation, like something that we would have over coffee, or you know what I mean? Like it's a really open, free flow, and people are just really helped by that, because there's a lot of us, because what we see and how we experience things are so different than what everybody else is doing. We kind of keep it, we keep it close to our chest. We don't share it. We don't open up because it's so strange. But then, and this is the most common feedback that I get. It's like, oh my gosh, for years I thought I was crazy, but then I heard you talk about it, and yes!
Yeah, what a relief, and the weight it takes off of knowing that you're not alone, or that there are others out there having these same kind of conversations and experiences. It is a huge relief. Yeah, what a wonderful offering.
Yeah.
And again, and just for clarity too, I want to repeat that as the Facebook group page called Rise of the Multidimensional Human. If there's anyone that would like to look at that while we're continuing our chat, they're more than welcome to as well.
Okay. I will have to approve people, because it is a closed group. Because people share very, sensitive things. So
sure. That makes sense. Yeah, and if you're creating an environment or a community of people that are within that like-minded, state conversation with what you're sharing there, it makes sense to kind of vet those that are trying to join in, so that you have more of the same, more of those like-minded groups of people supporting each other.
Yeah, totally. And no topic is too taboo. We will talk about anything and everything. We actually talk about some very, very controversial topics that are highly charged, but everybody's very respectful in the group, and it's okay to disagree. And it's not, and just because we disagree, it doesn't mean one person is more along the path than the other or anything like that. It's just that, and this is one of the premises I talk about, is that you are on your journey, and your journey is taking you to exactly where you need to go to learn, to acquire, to remember what it is you need to remember. And it may mean that you need to go down a path that doesn't look like anybody else's path. It doesn't make it wrong. And that seems to help ease the tensions a lot. One of the really controversial issues that we've talked about in the past and comes up every so often, over and over, well, actually comes up about once a year, is the topic of chakra removal. And there's a lot of starseeds online. There's a lot of starseeds online sharing their experience of unwinding their chakras. So that really hits deep to healers that have been doing healing work for many decades, and so the kinds of conversations we have is really, really golden. So,
oh, wow. So this may be a very new thing for some of the listeners to hear about the chakra removal. So if you don't mind touching in just a bit to explain to them what that means if this is their first time hearing that.
Okay. Well, I only can share what the starseeds have shared, the different ones in that group have shared about their experience with chakra removal. So what happens is that, the starseeds, the young ones, these, the 30s and under folks, they don't have the same kind of lenses we do, those of us born in the 70s and earlier, and they have a different awareness inside themselves. And the most common thread between them is that they, when meditation one day, felt there was a limitation happening by the shape and frequency rotation of the chakras. Like there was something about it that was limiting the expansion of their consciousness in that area of the body. And then they go intuitively get drawn into a process by either a spirit guide or an entourage member or an ET to go in deeper and do the personal work of unwinding. And what the unwinding looks like is that the chakras, the energy sensors no longer spin in the way that they were. They become radiant suns, and they all are all the same color of gold and white. And in many, they actually don't even have 7 sensors anymore. There's just 3 main sensors. And there's been a couple reports where it's just one big energy sensor. So, and I mean, I'm fascinated by these stories. I'm like, wow, for one, to have that kind of awareness at that age, whew, I'm impressed. and then to hear their stories and to look at their energy, it's like I'm getting a whole lesson on this is potentially what the new human looks like. We don't have the same energy system as the ones that were born earlier, and that coincides with ancient teachings that I have been taught by different elders and masters of Dreamtime that these times that we're in right now is a time when the new human is going to come, and that new human doesn't operate the same way as the ones of the old paradigm. And that is essential that they get, it's essential that they get supported and assisted in the work that they're doing. And I think many of us can agree that there's some really amazing young people coming into this world that are just that are geniuses and don't see the problems, don't see things as a problem because let me say this another way. They're not hopeless on where the planet is right now because they can clearly see the solution.
Mm-hmm. I love the insight they are coming in with and the clarity. That is an amazing thing and so needed. It does make sense to me, too, as to why they are coming in with different energy systems, especially if you're looking at it a little bit from, say, an astrology perspective. You're given your natal chart, and it's based on your time of birth, your location, the date, everything has got an influence, all the planetary alignments. So that includes that of Earth, in my mind, that where we are within space orbiting, that given location of Earth also probably would require different energy systems to support all that's happening. And it's a big way to think of it, but it makes a lot of sense to me. Without even getting into the depths of astrology or anything like that. It's just an overview. My whole body's like, yeah, of course, that makes sense.
Yeah. So the space that I hold is to, we allow those kinds of conversations to happen so everybody feels safe to share. And really I don't want to say old timers, but, I consider myself an old timer. I mean, we've been doing it, you and I both, we've been doing this for, decades. I think that it's really eye-opening for us to recognize when we're having a reaction, and making something wrong, rather than just sitting back and listening to what these young ones have to tell us. And
Yeah.
and this is also something that's really emphasized with different exospecies that I've worked with. It's like, do not qualify things according to how you understand it to be. In fact, forget everything you know and just listen. Total stillness. Just listen. And in doing that, you can rearrange certain belief systems and things in the subconscious that are contributing to the manifestation of our reality. And I was just like, whoa, that's all it takes is listening, really?
Yeah, so there's a lot to be said about listening, which is funny because you're not talking, but there's a lot to be said. Yeah, because it's really important, the kind of information that we receive when we're quiet. And it's not through the mind, it's for our listeners to fully understand, and there's many that will already get this. It's the listening through the body. It's all that body information, vibration. It's interpreting what you're feeling, sensing, receiving, what's comfortable, what's not comfortable, what does it mean, without judgment. Listening without judgment, just taking in the information. It's really important and so profound. You get to read between the lines. You're reading behind what's actually being presented. There's a lot to be said by just listening. Yeah, I highly encourage that for everyone as well.
Yes. And this is one of those pieces to Jaguar medicine that, that has been presented over and over to us by different medicine peoples, the art of tracking. Part of that, big piece of that, is not being fearful and letting go and just letting yourself be still. So it's during the old paradigm, there was a lot of challenges to preserve the medicine, to preserve the work, because of the different levels of persecution that populations were going through. So there was a lot of pieces that were lost. So that means what survives because it's like the cream of the crop of what's necessary for a human to wake up. It's like the absolute golden, the gems of the gems, So the medicine that they're bringing forward and offering to us, it's like, this is really special stuff. This is really potent medicine if we truly in our heart space have a yes to dive into it. Something that the Pleiadians, you said something about the listening, it made me think about the Pleiadians and some of the other exospecies that we work with. They had me do, I shouldn't say had me, they inspired me to do an activation to help bring in sacred government, sacred reign into the consciousness of the planet. And how it happened, I had no idea how to do this, by the way. I'm flying blind most of the time. I simply feel my yes to go into something, and I trust that everything that needs to unfold will, and that I'll show up in the way that I need to. So there's a lot of self-trust in there. So I put the information. Yeah, totally. It's like, wait a minute, I don't have a clue, and they're like, perfect. That's exactly where you need to be. Yeah. And so what they did was, all right, so I put the information out there for the activation, everybody shows up, and we start getting into the work, and it was so simple. It was beautiful. All it was getting, bringing people into a still place, and then they came forward and sat in our field. They came forward in groups, different layers, different civilizations, and they opened up a resonance where we can resonate with the sacred government that their species lives with. So the Pleiadians came, the Sirians came, many insectoid races came. And it was so profound, I can't even tell you. It's one of my most favorite activations ever, because all we needed to do was listen and feel and sense and say yes to knowing the frequencies that they were offering us. And I really,
That's amazing. I mean, if you really, I'm picturing it in my head, as if I'm there. I feel like I'm part of it without even knowing much of the other details, where, I just feel like that yes and listening. So that makes a good point, too, because we're not only listening to our body and what's coming through in that sense, but listening to the planet and the frequencies or vibrations of what's happening on the planet, the hum or the tone or, the vibrations of the animals, or, there's so much to learn just by listening. Yeah, it's just amazing. And that trust is a hard one for a lot of people. But boy, does it pay off. It really helps a ton to get out of your own way and just trust them. All right. I do want to break this real quickly here. Is a good moment to do that for our commercial break. And on the other side of this commercial, we'll come back and get some more interesting information and stories from Christina. Hang tight, and we'll return shortly.
Whether it's coming from the world of entertainment, integrative medicine, quantum theory, conspiracy facts, ancient archaeology, sacred geometry, financial trends, or perhaps even from the very world of self-help and motivational speaking, Real Revolution Radio possesses the information you need. Listen today to our daily inspiring lineup of podcast radio talk shows, only on realrevolutionradio.com.
When our awareness is anchored in our core knowing, we become limitless. We walk our daily lives anchored in our truth, feeling liberated and boundless. Christina Schwind is the owner of Light Body Therapeutics, as well as a master tracker and multidimensional activator. She is a powerful light body healer with a unique and thorough approach to resolving chronic pain, anxiety, and trauma, as well as opening one's intuitive abilities. Light Body Therapeutics brings forward a highly refined process of accelerated energy medicine to unravel the stuck and old mechanisms at the root level. This effectively and permanently removes the interferences that blind us to our multidimensional awarenesses. We are all hardwired to perceive multidimensionally, and all of our incarnational experiences are influenced by the organizing principle of our light body. Sessions with Christina can be done in person or remotely, as well as other services found on her website, www.lightbodyinc.com, or email info@lightbodytherapeutics.com. Open your innate abilities and become limitless by contacting Christina Schwind today.
True healing must address 4 levels: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual, for us to live joyful and productive lives. We tend to treat 3 of the 4, leaving the spiritual languishing. If you're tired of the same dysfunctional patterns cropping up in your life, Soul Balancing is for you. Trixie Phelps, owner and founder of Soul Balancing, is a naturally gifted energy healer trained in numerous esoteric forms, including shamanism. Trixie has created a powerful modality that safely and effectively clears your energetic field. A soul balancing session can remove interference, heal trauma, and restore your hope. Contact Trixie for a life-changing long-distance session today, www.soulbalancing.world.
Today, to the Marine Show, where we will introduce you to the world of alternative remedies. Join Marine Pisani as she hosts discussions with leading experts in the fields of hypnotherapy, acupuncture, yoga, Ayurveda, EFT, chronic healing, integrative medicine, and so much more. Marine will also brave topics that many consider taboo. Yes, taboo talk. Tune in today to the Marine Show, heard on popular social media and now on Smart TV. Hey, what's up? Come on for this radio production only on realrevolutionradio.com.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Cleveland, we now have liftoff to a higher level of consciousness. Tune in to realrevolutionradio.com, the #1 source for independent music and inspirational podcast radio. Awaken, evolve, inspire, and join the evolution only on realrevolutionradio.com.
You're listening to realrevolutionradio.com. There's hope as long as you're alive.
Thank you for joining me back on the second segment of the show with my special guest, Christina Schwind. Her website is www.lightbodyinc.com. Please check her website out, and if you're on Facebook, check out her group, Rise of the Multidimensional Human. And then welcome back, Christina. We're having some wonderful conversations around these beautiful ET beings and some of these activation experiences. I'm loving this.
Me too. Thank you. It's funny we both laugh.
I know. Well, I love it. And that laughter is so healing in of itself. And I've noticed too in hindsight when I've said this many, many times to many people, right? And laughter, I look at that and I go, why is that? I'm curious. What about that laughter has really just heals? I mean, it's just so fun and yet it's so healing. And I go, what is it about that? And there's something around, I think, a connection. When we're able to laugh, we're laughing either with ourselves, right, or with someone else in a group or just one-on-one or any number of scenarios. When we're able to connect with someone to that level of being able to laugh about it, it's like taking a huge boulder off of each shoulder into, just dissipating. So it's like the weight of that world just suddenly shifted dramatically because you were able to get to a place to laugh about it. I mean, that was a phenomenal little kind of insight that came through, and I'll be sure to gratefully thank my entourage, as I'm sure those are some of our beloved ETs that brought that information through. But how amazing is that?
Yeah. It's so easy to get overwhelmed and take this so seriously. It really is, because these are serious issues for humanity. But if we can take it in stride and feel that connection and let ourselves laugh, it just makes it so much easier. It really does.
It does. And I know with you and I do off and on things together, and of course I love when we can do that and laugh a lot through that. So I can only imagine that you're offering that same kind of approach to your students, and even your clients, I'm guessing, so when you work with them, there's pockets of laughter in there as well.
Yeah. Actually, I've talked about some pretty heavy subjects, and I'll say it laughing, and then someone will say, it's like, why are you laughing? Because that really is not funny, And then I have to explain. Listen, we have in the human experience, it's really dense and intense, and I'm laughing because I know it. I've walked through this, and I know it, and I understand what's on the other side. So I can bring you this information without it being an intensity bomb, and instead just take it in stride. It's okay. It's completely okay.
Yeah.
Like the global warming conversation is a great example. It's like people. I understand there's a huge emotional charge around this, and I'm not saying that the state of our planet is not important, because it absolutely is. It's essential. But what I tell people, it's like, the Earth is warming up. That ship has sailed. It's done. You know what I mean? Really, what humanity needs to wake up to is our stewardship of each other and our planet. That's what humanity needs to wake up to. It's not really about stopping global warming, because it's happened. All the planets in the solar array are warming up. So I can say things like that with a laugh, and people will be able to hear it, and not take it for the apocalyptic bomb that they could take it as.
Right. Yeah, so very many scenarios of reality that are coming through. And part of that is what I also share is where we are in orbit. I really reference that often, too, because I think that's a very significant influence on what we're experiencing. So global warming being a bit from the humans, yes. But I also believe there's some influential change that's affecting that as well because of where we are in orbit. But, oh, my goodness, the expansion of knowledge that's out there. And I think one of the most blessed things a person can do is acknowledge they don't know what they don't know. And just be open, and receive. It's just so exciting what can actually come through, and it's not scary, really. It's a lot of fun. The surprises and the connections that are made. I'm sure we're not going to have near enough time to have the conversations that I would love to have with your experiences on these ETs and the connections and such like this. And I know you've had some recent experiences, so I want to really include that before we end up running out of time. I want to know of some of your more recent connections with our ET beloveds, what messages that they've been bringing through.
Well, there's been a lot of different things. One of those exospecies that, and I know you have communication with these guys too, are with the Sasquatch. These are these interdimensional beings. Yeah.
I love them. Yes, I'm always so very excited to connect with them. Always a joy. I love it so much. Yeah. So please continue.
Yes, and it took me quite some time of unraveling my belief systems and who I thought I was to actually be ready to have a healthy relationship with Sasquatch. So just even getting to know these folks is a journey in itself. That I feel like I've been on that journey for quite some time. But so in working with them, what they're really interesting because they told me a while back that they were going to reaching out to humanity, coming out to humanity in a really big way. And I remember them saying that, and I just kind of laughed it off, like, yeah, right. And I kind of was like, yeah, whatever. Good luck with that, And then wouldn't you know it, it's happening, which is absolutely astounding in the ways that it's happening. So, and there's a few different levels that it's happening on. One, the collective is being presented with images of Sasquatch as very friendly, laughable, and stuff like this. So I don't know if you guys have ever seen the television commercials for I think it's a beef jerky or something, with the Sasquatch in the woods playing guitar and then smelling the beef jerky and chasing the camper, and then, I don't know, somehow they become friends and they were both by a campfire singing songs.
That would be awesome. That would be really cool to do.
Yeah, right. And then, so there's a lot of different versions of that commercial, and then there's all these imageries out there for breweries and bands, and I mean, it's everywhere. Everywhere I go, I see Sasquatch somewhere, right? And I know that's a very superficial level, but what that's doing is presenting the image, the idea of Sasquatch to a collective in a very friendly, non-threatening way, because when you actually have an experience with Sasquatch, most humans start to question their sanity and go a little berserk. Like an unintegrated experiencer. You'll end up having like real problems with your reality because you can't reconcile what just happened. So that's a journey, right? And the Sasquatch now and I have a really cool relationship. They pop in and out. They show me things. They direct me in certain areas. And another thing that they do is that once you have a healthy, autonomous relationship with Sasquatch, they will start to introduce you to other interdimensional and extraterrestrial species, which is really cool because they'll kind of like bring you into the meeting and say, yo, peeps, this one's cool. They're one of mine,
Yo, peeps. That's great. I love it. Well, it's true, though. There's a lot of these experiences that are very heartfelt and welcoming. It's not the way it's portrayed, obviously, on TV and in movies for the most part. There's a couple out there that are pretty decent, but it's often just the depiction that's made. And then once you actually start getting these connections or having these, connections or voices or experiences if you're in the forest or, all that to be said is something. And it's a little bit of a stair step, or baby steps might be a better word, to helping us understand that what we've been shown isn't exactly true. I love that they're presenting themselves in such a playful and fun and humorous sort of way. It's great.
Yeah. And people may be blown away to learn that there's a Sasquatch. We just had our 4th annual Sasquatch conference in Washington, and there are hundreds of people that come. This year was the biggest it's ever been, and everybody left with an experience. Everybody had a Sasquatch experience on whatever level that they were ready for. For some, it was they were finding prints, and for others, they were able to record their sounds in the forest, and I mean all kinds of a whole spectrum of experiences that were just right for those people. Yes, it was very cool. And then so getting back to the piece about them introducing you to other beings, when it's really important to understand that interdimensional beings think of them as super hyper empaths, and they are affected by thoughts and emotions very easily. And what's important about a Sasquatch, kind of like deeming you as, this one's cool and they're with me, is that they're saying to these other species that this one is safe. They are not going to turn themselves into a victim of yours. You know what I mean? They have autonomy of themselves. Yeah, they have autonomy of themselves on a multidimensional level, and this, so this one's okay to work with. It's like they kind of vet you out, because when you're perceiving multidimensionally, and I know, Trixie, you know this too, your heart gets really opened. And humans, because of our wounding, when our hearts get blown that wide open, if we haven't done a lot of work, you know, our wounding starts to come to the surface, and we become unstable and not necessarily very safe to be around, because when our heart's that open and we're engaging with these beings, our wounding will start revealing itself, and we won't know the difference between our wounding and what these beings are trying to communicate with us about. And and that's a really important thing to be aware of, because people kind of, you know, they try to push it, and you can't push it. It's when you're ready, you're ready. And I'm sure you also have this experience that if you push it and you do it before you're ready, it kind of turns into a traumatic experience, and it takes years to get over.
It can, it can definitely be traumatizing depending on the state of mind somebody can be in, but there's really nothing, in the bigger scheme, there's nothing if that person is coming through, like you say, open-hearted or kind. When people are coming out to connect with Sasquatch or the different clans there of, right, what I'm saying is like their intention, their agendas, you know, that sense, that's part of the emotions and the thought forms that the Sasquatches are picking up, and so an experience for them is going to be very different for, you know, versus somebody who's coming in more open and loving.
Yeah. Like.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
Thank you. I suppose that does need to be accentuated, because that's such an important piece.
It is.
And you remember that time when we were in the woods, when we kind of just dived into them showing us their wounding, or the Sasquatch were showing us their wounding, and some things that need to be worked on. And, you know, that was a really intense experience for a few of us. And what I didn't dawn on me until later to how much trust they had. That was huge for a Sasquatch to do with other human beings. It was like, it still blows me away and brings a bit of a tear to my eye, like, wow, that's how far we've come. That's how much trust we've built with these beings.
Yes, there's a lot to, that's huge. It's a big deal. It really is.
And so once you come to that kind of level of connection with the Sasquatch, they start introducing you to other beings. And they introduced me to, well, I knew about them, and I've had interactions with them, with different insectoids and stuff, but not to the level that we're working on now, and that is these beings called the ant people. And the ant people actually do have, humanity does have stories and records of having experiences with these beings, especially in the American Southwest with the Hopi and the Dene and those tribes. And so it wasn't completely new to me, but the way they interact and engage, and the whole purpose of wanting to interact and engage with me, it was completely new to me. I had no idea. But they are very interesting creatures. They don't feel at all like Sasquatch. They're very, very different, and they have a message for humanity. And I'm going to go ahead and share a little bit about that now. Okay. A lot of the stories of the ant people is saving humanity. It's like the tribes were at this time of catastrophe, and there was going to be net annihilation for everybody that lived in that part of those lands, and the ant people took them in and fed them and took care of them. And then they say that the ant people took care of them so much, that's why they have these skinny waists. This is the standard story. Now, what they leave out of the story is that later the Hopi and Dene and several other tribes started killing the ant people. And there was a skirmish that broke out, and that broke the connection between the ant people and humankind. And there's a lot woven in there, but what the part that I want to focus on is that there was trust was betrayed in a very deep way on both sides. And on another level, what this is representing is the conflict that humanity has within themselves. And so when I connected with the ant people in a much bigger way last year, they said, we're going to come out to humanity like Sasquatch did. And we're here to heal this rift, you know. And I kind of laughed. I'm like, all right, I know the Sasquatch surprised me about coming out to humanity, but really, people, I don't know if they're really going to be able to take that. and I did an activation to about war trauma and stuff like this, and they ended up, this was around the solstice, and of course they came through, and the very next day in the UK there was a crop circle of an ant coming out of a vortex. You guys can look this up online. It's really mind-blowing. I was like, what? What just happened?
Wow.
Yeah, and at the time we were working very strongly with the spider people and the ant people. So we went back and forth, like, is it an ant? Is it a spider? Is it an ant? Is it a spider? And now that we did this work that we did in Bosnia, those two consciousnesses are very closely tied together. And so what the message they're trying to bring is that we need to do the work we need to do to allow harmony. Oops, I dropped my little thing here. To allow harmony to exist within our bodies. Just like I did with the sacred rain, activation, and they were holding space of their governments and stuff like this for us to feel into that vibration. They're saying a similar thing, but with harmonics. So that means infinite compassion and love and forgiveness. So the trip that we went to was to a war-torn part of the Eastern Europe. Croatia had a revolutionary war with Serbia, and Bosnia went through ethnic cleansing from Serbia, where they were collecting mass amounts of Muslims and killing them. And the country was very, I know I'm kind of all over, but I pride myself tied together. The country was war-torn, okay? There's still signs of it everywhere. Buildings demolished. There's all these ruins of houses that used to be because the family doesn't exist anymore to repair it, stuff like this. And then there's these monuments of the masses that died in different areas. And it's a wound that's just under the surface. And wouldn't you know it, of course, every guide that we had ended up talking about their experiences with the war. It's really interesting, the things that they would choose to talk about. And what I realized, what we were doing, because we are awoke on a multidimensional level, we can bring infinite compassion into the dark very easily. It's kind of something that is, for many of us, we feel like is our purpose, So we are experiencing the lands, and all the food, by the way, is grown local and organic. It's like there really aren't a lot of grocery stores. People grow their own food. They depend, they're self-reliant with the land, many of them. And so we were deeply woven into the telluric realm of the lands. We were woven in energetically, and then, of course, we had our exospecies connection. And so we were really inundated in those frequencies. And so as we progressed, we were bringing compassion into the wounds. We were experiencing all these pieces, and we weren't experiencing them as oh my God, these people are so wrong for doing that, or we weren't in the victim or the perpetrator mode, and we were actually unwinding these energies that were a conflict between pushing your energy on other beings and pulling your energy back and not showing up for other beings. So it was like this push-pull dynamic between the spider people and the ant people that was getting unwound and unraveled as we traveled through. So by the time we made it to Pyramid Valley, which is the Bosnian pyramid complex, we were primed to connect with those energies. And what it boils down to is that all those woundings are getting unraveled from the collective, which allows us to know deeper harmony within ourselves, which our true power as a human being is accepting our interconnectedness with all beings, which is really difficult, especially for empaths, And I'll circle back to that in a minute. Yeah, you're an empath, you totally know. Our interconnectedness is actually our strength, and that's actually where we find our freedom. And in the work that we were doing, what they were revealing is that they want to gift humanity free energy. But humanity can't accept free energy until they can allow that level of harmonics to exist inside of their bodies. Right? No,
that makes sense, because right now it's just all about the greed, to charge for those, those things, for the energy that we need, to be able to live in harmonics would probably void that out. Mm-hmm.
It does. So what happens is that's exactly what we do. With our level of consciousness, we actually dampen the fields that are necessary to converge to create a free energy biofield. Now, there's different kinds of free energy. There's the free energy where the device actually makes more energy than it takes being operated. There's that kind of free energy device, and there's many of those right now on the planet, especially in Boulder, Colorado. It's crazy. There's a lot of, I can't tell you how many people have told me they have one of those energy devices and they use it. But also, we also have the idea of green energy, like solar and wind and hydropower and stuff like this. But this is something beyond those kinds of technologies. This is technologies where the energy, the actual biofield energy of the Earth gets qualified through these different systems, like the ley lines and the energy grids, consciousness grids, and stuff like this, through structures. And those fields overlap in such a way, over and over and over again, they overlap in such a way that creates a field where you can just where energy is just in the air, and you can power devices with it. Now, I've been in the tunnels, Radna tunnels underneath there, and the energy is off the hook. People from all over Bosnia go to those. Yeah, people from all over Bosnia go there to get healing, because they're healing. Their biosuit is healing, right? Their body chemistry is changing and things are shifting for them. But also, what's happening is that their consciousness is healing, and that's really where the real juicy stuff is for me. Is understanding by being in those fields, your consciousness is healing, and it's actually like a soul level reintegration. And that has a ripple effect throughout your body, as I know you know, because with solar treatment and stuff. So it was really profound what the people were showing me, because it sounded so out there. It really did sound really sci-fi. But then we experienced it ourselves in going to these places and working with the energies. And then so now I'm just kind of processing all that. It's really blowing me away. Like, holy crap, this would change the consciousness of humanity globally if these devices come online. And all it takes is us letting go of I'm right, you're wrong, and the divisive pieces that all those dogmas that divide us. All we need to do is see past that and allow our interconnectedness to be the prevailing level of consciousness for us. And I was contemplating, all this stuff was going through my mind when I was there, and it was very difficult to put my finger on things and talk about it. But what was interesting is our guide, Adine, I swear he was so psychic. I would have a thought, then he would just start talking and telling me a story that totally had relevance to the thought I was having. And one of the things he was a Muslim man, and one of the things he said, because one of the people in the group has always wanted to go to this village called Medjugorje, where a premonition of Mary appeared to many people for over 40 days or something like this. And it was really famous in, I think it was like the 70s. It was like a world-famous place that people still do pilgrimages to today. And she realized that we were really close to that village. And he was just like, oh, well, then we just have to go. Not at all in our plan to go, but he was like, you've wanted to do this ever since you were a child? It's a crime for you not to go. So he took it upon himself to take us to Medjugorje, right? And he and I were talking, and this is like when we first kind of were meeting, so just, kind of feeling each other out. And I didn't go up the hill to the apparition because I felt like I didn't feel like I wanted to go. And so we got to talk, and he was saying that, the reason why we call Bosnia is not just Bosnia. Bosnia is Bosnia and Herzegovina. And it's because they're actually two different states, but they are together under one governing body. And what divides them, what's the characteristic that divides them, is that one is predominantly Catholic and the other is predominantly Muslim. And that he said, but none of this really matters to the Balkan people. The Balkan people, first and foremost feel and know their culture is a Balkan culture, and that the normal people, the everyday people, don't allow the religious thing to divide them. They embrace their interconnectedness, and that it's really the political leaders and the religious leaders, the zealots and stuff, that create this divide. And people only choose one side or the other because they're fearful that they're going to get, that whole saying about if you're not my friend, you're my enemy, The only reason why they choose is because they feel they have to. But ultimately, everybody feels like they're one people. And then he took us to Sarajevo, also still very war-torn. A lot of those buildings had humongous bullet holes through it, You can see where they were shooting for somebody in one of those windows, you know. Like there's 50 bullet holes in just on one area of the high rise. And what he showed me was it was one of the oldest mosques in the country. This is odd here now, because once you cross over towards Sarajevo, you're leaving Herzegovina and going into Spazia. And so one of the oldest mosques that was in the city, and then just a block away from that, one of the oldest Orthodox Christian churches, and a block away from that was a Catholic church. And he says, Sarajevo, this is the mindset. We are all a blend, and we all accept each other in our differences. You know, and it was really moving, the things that he was doing. He was just inspired to take us to these places that, of course, turned into be the perfect thing. and what I left with was that, you know, this is what they are living. They're living a very, what we would call, evolved level of consciousness. They grow their own food. They're connected with their people. They live in villages. Everybody knows everybody. Everybody accepts everybody. You know, and they just live their life to love their life. They don't live their life for a cause that's outside of themselves. And one of the most prized characteristics a human can have in their society are ones that build things and do things to give to the community at large. And it was just amazing. So
it's like a dream, you know, that's kind of a dream type of life, you know, that many, including myself, would love to have. You know, that kind of oneness and support and living from the land, all that just sounds amazing.
Yeah, yes. And I mean, I wanted to tell him, it's like, you guys, you have no idea what a blessing it is that you're living there. But actually, I really did not need to tell him, because when he was 14, they rounded up all the Muslims around in the area, in 8,000, he told me, in Basoko, and killed them all in 3 days. His family escaped. Yeah. So what's amazing about that, I mean, it's awful, right? It's an awful tragedy. He was saying normal human beings don't do that. He's like, I don't even want to understand how a human can be capable of something like that. But what that terrible thing has done was when these people were able to come back to their land, was crack them open so wide with their pain that they were fully committed to living life for real, like all the way, like, you know, not be preoccupied with the shouldas and couldas. Like, you really have no idea how long you're going to live, so love it every second.
Wow, right. Powerful message through a really intense experience.
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah. But it was love. Oh. There was so much love there. I can't even begin to tell you. And something that when I was laying in bed, when I got home, I was contemplating, and I actually posted this comment on the Rise group, that I was wondering if what we did was enough. You know, it's like, did we do everything that we needed to do? Was it enough? Because, you know, things get overwhelming, and as empaths, we especially get overwhelmed because we feel so much. And an amp person, you know, very gently came to me and said that if we, the ant people, can wake up to infinite love and compassion, and wake up to and accept love and compassion, then absolutely, without a doubt, humanity can too.
Wow. I have faith in the humanity to do so as well. I mean, given from my own experiences, coming out of ego is not an easy thing to do. And I've been a fairly stubborn person most of my life. I will be the first to admit that now. I can see it more clearly. But, you know, it's not an easy task. But I will tell you, the grass is greener on the other side if you can really bring yourself to dropping ego and letting go of some of that pride and really getting into that heart-centered space and, you know, compassion and love. It's just phenomenal.
Yes, because when we're...
And there's a lot of healing just in that and of itself. Sorry, go ahead.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say. When you're in that, that's exactly what I was going to say, because when you're in that, with your presence, it actually changes things. It changes the people. It changes the energy. It's like...
It really does.
Somehow,
yeah, it's just like the lenses you were referring to. It changes the lens, removes them, or changes them more appropriately to the truth, or, you know, whatever that person's reality is reflecting. But yeah, It's so worth it. It's not so easy in the moment, but I cannot emphasize how great it is once you do. Trusting in your higher self, in your creator, or in your guides, to this positive, benevolent, type of reality that we all want to have and create. It is worth it. And I do have faith that humanity will get there, especially when you start looking at all those children that we were talking about coming in, more adapted and more cleaner than those of us that were from older generations, coming in with more history, perhaps, old souls, traumas that we have to clear and work through and do more of, where the younger ones they're establishing something much differently, but also very profound. It's all very much harmonic in its entirety, I believe.
Yes, we are so supportive.
Yes, we really, really are. And again, that's something, too, that people will easily more realize for themselves if they are able to listen, like we were talking about. I think that's huge in learning it. And I don't always do names. I just want to clarify that, too, because I'm not big on names. It just doesn't come through real well for me, at least currently. So I don't worry about the names. I feel it by vibration, who's there. Sometimes that energy feels like the Pleiadians are visiting, or the Arcturians, or the Sasquatch, right? And you get that feel of who they are, and you develop that connection. It's really not any different than when we are with our family, sisters, brothers, mothers, fathers, right? Any of these family members, even with our own children, there's some kind of a sense and a knowing of what you don't even have to know who's in the room, right? You maybe weren't looking and somebody walked in, and you'll get a sense or a feel or a vibe of, oh, that's so-and-so. And you turn around and it is, right? Because you picked up that vibrational sense. It's same but different. Same but different. You'll feel it in your body and you start to know. We are definitely supported.
Yeah, so much. And the point that you're making there is really important, especially in exospecies relationships, because a name is something that is linear. And when you're working multidimensionally, there are no names. There's just your frequency resonance. That's how everybody knows you. So it's more accurate.
Yeah, so the cleaner your vibration is, the more open channels of communications I think you'll be accessible to.
Yeah. And I mean, but that's an example of us projecting the human experience onto these beings. It's like they have to have a name. How can people talk about them? It's because they're not in the linear space-time, so they're
and it's okay. I'd say it's okay, because I know people that do give them names or ask for a name, and then they are given a name for that being, and that's okay too. It's more for, like you're saying, more for the purpose of the human to have that connection on the linear level, just to have a reference of some kind, because that's what we've been programmed to do and know, and it's how we live. Everything has a name or is somehow labeled. Not always in a bad way. It can be in a good way. So working with these beautiful beings are going to be similar. Yeah, just by vibration, you'll get to know how it feels.
Yeah, and the ones reaching out to humanity are ambassadors specifically for humans right now. And so they're of course they're going to give you a name, and they're going to give you the same name that they give other people. But when you're working on these other levels, it's kind of like when you're, it turns into a different ballgame when you're stepping outside of not channeling anymore, but you're integrating all of who you are in all these other levels, and you're living it every day and every moment. It's no longer a separate frequency from your everyday life. When you're in that space, that's where it becomes easier just to let go of the name game and just be, because part of the rise of multidimensional human vision and work is that we are living, breathing galactic beings in a biosuit, and we can speak to any being throughout the cosmos with simply our awareness.
Absolutely. It doesn't even matter the type of languages that they might have within their own cultures or communities versus our English language or whatever we speak on planet Earth. It's vibrational. You don't need translators. It just happens naturally. Yeah, that's huge for a lot of people to get past as well. But it's a deciphering. It's the interpretation for that individual specifically. And again, it comes from listening in your body, listening to the planet. Yeah, that's phenomenal. Oh my gosh, Christina, I have so enjoyed our conversations. And I knew we were going to run out of time.
Okay, so sad.
So much. It does. It really goes fast. I would love to have you again for more interviews. There's so much to share, so much to talk about. We could literally dedicate the entire interview to just one of those magnificent, benevolent beings, and just talking about them the entire time, or two, each a half hour or something. We could really get out a lot more of this beautiful messaging and synchronicity and support and such. So I look forward to connecting with you again.
Yes,
if that's
me
something
too.
you feel resonates. Yeah. Again, everybody, please check out Christina Schwind. She's got some amazing offers and some wonderful groups and communities. Her website is lightbodyinc.com. So www.lightbodyinc.com. And if you're on Facebook, check out her group, Rise of the Multidimensional Human. And Christina, thanks again for being here. It's been wonderful.
Thanks, Trixie. It's been fun for me as well.
Awesome, wonderful. And if any of you guys are still interested in checking out my website at soulbalancing.world, I would love to hear from you. We'll talk to you guys again or here on our next interview. Have a good day.
instead, dear listeners, through podcast radio on realrevolutionradio.com. Never before has Inspirational Podcast Radio been taken to this next level of wow. Until now. Today, in the age of information, more and more people are searching for answers and in solutions in how to better approach and perceive every day-to-day concerns by tuning in to realrevolutionradio.com. Isn't it about time we take back our lives, back in consciousness, in a higher state of awareness, in the evolution of our own state of higher well-being? Yes, we can do so consciously every day by tuning in to the many groundbreaking and third eye-opening podcasts. Our new Cleveland-based network of over 33 paradigm-shifting internet talk shows. Only on realrevolutionradio.com. Be part of that change. Evolve. Be inspired.
Combining home and auto with State Farm gets you great coverage for less. Combining 90s R&B with State Farm radio ads gets you this jam covered for free.
Home and auto, let's do it. Combine it, my policy, my wallet is waiting. Come on, jump on it. Home and auto.
For more coverage, visit statefarm.com.
Combine it.
Is your cell phone bill out of control? Then this is your wake-up call. The new TracFone Wireless gives you unlimited talk and text starting at $20 a month, no contract, plus unlimited carryover data with active service. Yep, the new TracFone Wireless. Now you're in control. See terms and conditions at TracFone.com.